After admitting that the Bush administration essentially froze communication with and access by this network, former Bush White House Press Secretary Dana Perino feigns shock and awe over the Obama administration's pushback against fixed news. Meanwhile, a fixed news executive claims the White House admitted to a mistake and apologized to that network. The White House says it did nothing of the sort. Our third story in the countdown, Fox Noise helps the Obama administration prove its point as it just continues to make stuff up. First, faux outrage over a network pool interview with White House pay consultant Kenneth Feinberg. Fox says it was excluded from the interview. The White House says Fox never asked to be included. Oddly enough, Fox wound up doing the interview anyway. Then Fix News VP Michael Clemente told Huffington Post that White House Press Secretary Gibbs had acknowledged a mistake was made in not including that network. A White House official then told TPM that Gibbs did not apologize. Meanwhile, Chris Wallace on his Sunday show, making sure his program carved out some time to discuss the war on the White House, turned to former Bush White House Press Secretary Perino for her reaction.
It was a coordinated, calculated attack. It was unbecoming. And if you look at some of the coverage of what mainstream media covers when, for example, somebody like a Hugo Chavez shuts down television stations, he calls them illegitimate. Now, I'm not suggesting that this White House believes that they're going to come over here and shut down Fox News, but they are defining a narrative in their first year, and it's going to be very hard to recover from it.
Oh, God, is she full of crap. Ms. Perino, perhaps forgetting that she slipped and told the truth on Cluster Fox and Friends just last week about the Bush White House's track record with MSNBC.
And not only did you not go after them, you gave them interviews, as did the president.
Sure.
Gave them all interviews. You read Ronald Reagan's diaries.
Towards the end, we didn't do a lot with MSNBC.
Let's turn to MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff, also senior strategist at Public Strategies and author of Renegade, The Making of a President. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
I'm trying to get the moral relativism here. This administration criticizes Fox, therefore on Fox, Obama is Hugo Chavez. And the previous one, let me read the list again. It cuts off MSNBC. It threatens NBC. It has its political party threaten to back out of a Tom Brokaw-moderated debate if I'm not removed as a news anchor. It pays columnists to write pro-Bush columns in secret, plants questions, and a fake reporter in its own news conferences. And Dana Perino thinks she was being patriotic. I'm missing something in the equation. What is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that it's unbecoming. It's just unbecoming. Let's just replay the tape, shall we? The big rupture between the Bush White House and NBC News was over this little thing that happened in Iraq. And specifically that NBC News correspondents, in particular Richard Engel, were actually reporting just how bad the situation was over there. And the Bush White House at the time thought they were being pro-American and pro-troops by calling out a news division. So the whole patriotism card ought to be familiar to Dana Perino. And on top of that, you know, NBC News then had the gall to describe the situation in Iraq just as the rest of the world was, that it was a civil war. I mean, this stuff is not exactly the same as, I don't know, a death panel or something.
The whole thing with the pool interview last week, when Fox claimed it had, and falsely claimed it had been excluded, this is not Fox. Fox is usually wrong, I would say malevolent, but skilled. They don't make mistakes, and that was setting themselves up for ridicule. Are they off their game? Was it just a blip? Are they feeling a little bit more heat than they're letting on? Do we know?
Oh, I think the skill has no relationship to anything factual, actually, and that this little conundrum is working out, they think, pretty nicely for them. They see their numbers are up. The more outrageous they get, the less relationship they have with the truth, their ratings still go up. So as long as they're making money, who's to complain except, you know, the White House and rational people?
Of course, it doesn't. I mean, the ratings went up before this went back and forth with Obama, because as soon as Obama won, everybody who was scared of that ran over to Fox. I mean, there is a cart before the horse thing on this. But what's the people say, what's the White House end game on this? What's the Fox end game on this? If an executive admitted, as one did months ago, that it is the home of the opposition, how can an operation then claim it is not just a political entity?
Well, what's interesting is the political entity they're carving out for themselves. I don't think the White House was right in describing them as the arm of the Republican Party. They're trying to set up something new. As the voice of these disaffected independents who don't like Democrats, don't like Republicans. And look, I think they are setting themselves up for a faux campaign. You know, it's just one more marketing tool up Roger Ailes' rather large sleeve.
Oh, thank goodness you said sleeve. The Obama administration, according to Ms. Perino, is setting a bad example for emerging democracies by being critical of Fox. When the Bush administration bought positive stories from Iraqi journalists for publication in Iraqi newspapers, what was that, a how-to course in how to start up a democracy?
Well, the democracy thing is something I love the best. Self-reflection, recollection has not always been the strength of the Bush administration. I just want to remind Dana Perino and all the rest of them that there was this exchange early in the second term between Bush and this guy in Russia called Vladimir Putin. Bush was trying to teach Putin a lesson about how to deal with the press. He said you can't go around intimidating them, quite rightly, cannot go shutting down the free press. Putin turned around back to Bush and said, well, how come you got rid of Dan Rather then? And you know something? When it comes down to it, Putin, Chavez, all of those dictators or, let's say, autocratic leaders are more than adept at reading the news, interpreting the news, and maybe seeing things that they want. And the Bush administration was just as forceful, if not more so, than anything we're seeing out of this White House.
Amen. And Dan Rather is still on the air, and George Bush is doing $19 a ticket motivational speech ceremonies. Richard Wolff of MSNBC, author of Renegade, senior strategist at Public Strategies. Thanks as always, Richard.
Thank you, Keith.